So before we start with the subject of lesson 8, the question, I'm busy. Multitasking. Okay, before we start with lesson 8, the subject of lesson 8, the question, how do you know that 15 minutes has passed when you meditate? The answer is actually so simple that most people don't believe that it actually works. But you have an inner clock. All you need to do is trust. Trust that that inner clock is accurate and tells you when it is time. If I tell you that it works like that when you meditate, remember last week I emphasized that it's important to always set a time when you meditate. If you start your meditation without setting a time, your mind starts playing dirty tricks on you. Within 2 minutes, your mind has already found a reason to stop meditating. Either the garbage truck in the street that makes too much noise, or the dog of the neighbors that is barking, or whatever. The mind is very tricky. So you set a time, and regardless what happens, you stick to that time that you set. Regardless the neighbor's dog, the garbage truck in the street, or whatever it is that might otherwise distract you. How does it work? Well, when I was confronted with the concept myself at first, I immediately remembered that whenever you are excited about something, like you go on a vacation tomorrow. Normally you wake up every day at 8 o'clock. But now, to catch a plane, you have to get up at 4:30. And you think, oh my God, I'm never going to wake up. I always wake up at 8 o'clock. So you put 3 alarm clocks, hoping that you are not going to oversleep, so that you miss your plane. You go to bed with a feeling of excitement. Yay, tomorrow we're going on a vacation. Nice. You know what happens? At 4:20, you wake up. Your eyes are big before the alarm clock. Before you went to sleep, without you knowing it, you planted the time in your biological clock that said, I must get up at 4:30 to catch my plane. 10 minutes before the alarm clock goes off, you wake up. Doesn't it work like that? Don't you remember that these things have happened regularly? As a child, my father was a truck driver driving all over Europe. So for a child it's beautiful when you have a vacation that you can go. You go to Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Hungary. That is a huge adventure for a child. But you have to wake up in the middle of the night. You ask your dad, Dad, please wake me up, don't leave me. But before your dad stands next to your bed to wake you up, you're already wide awake. And you're waiting for him to come. And you think, oh my God, he must have forgotten me. No, you woke up 10 minutes, 15 minutes before you actually need to. Your biological clock made you wake up. When you meditate and you set time, really, and this is why it is important that you set time. You close your eyes and you feel comfortable. If you don't set the time, you're not comfortable because you don't know where you're going, what you're doing. Set time, 15 minutes, and believe me, you will finish your meditation around 15 minutes. Remember, nothing is perfect. It can be 14. It can be 16. But around 15 minutes, If you pay attention, and you do when your eyes are closed and you're meditating, you're very alert. When the time has passed that you set, something starts to stir in you. So when you started meditation based on a time that you set, you're very comfortable in a sense. Setting time gives you a sense of stability. So you sit there. When 15 minutes, approximately 15 minutes has passed, something on a very subtle level starts to stir. Normally you don't notice, but now you are meditating. You are very alert and you feel that disturbance. You feel that little thing stirring inside you. The only thing you now have to do is trust that feeling. How do you learn to trust that feeling? By finishing your meditation and then looking at the clock to confirm that it is correct. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you finish a little bit too early, sometimes a little bit too late. Not important. At the end of the course you meditate around 40 minutes, 40, 45 maybe. The longer the meditation, the more difficult it seems to get. Actually it's not. In the advanced course we meditate up to 1 hour and 20 minutes. Without looking at the clock, we're always pretty accurate. Give or take a couple of minutes, but it works. Remember, many yoga teachers talk about connecting the body and the mind and what have you. The connection, the soul connection. I talk about that too. But we have very nice examples of how that actually practically works, beyond the mystery and the dogma. That connection is this. You know, when you're standing still in asana, you're already making that connection. Standing still in asana forces you to connect with everything that happens inside. Everything that normally you and normal people are not aware of. You become connected with the subtle level inside you, intuition. In Korean, chikkam, direct sense, literally translated. And everybody has it. Everybody can do it. All you have to do is trust that it works. Experiment. And by experiment, you confirm that yes, you too can do it. This is one of those miracles that is not a miracle at all. It is very human. How do you think humans functioned before they had clocks in every room? They followed their feeling. How do you think a bird knows that it's 5 o'clock in the morning and it's time to fly out of their nest to find food? They have no clocks. The universe is our clock. And it works. It's not accurate to the second. It can't be. In the universe, that's not important. Try it and you will see. When we meditate all together, not only I set the clock, you set the clock too. If I say 15 minutes, remind yourself, repeat within yourself, 15 minutes. And I'm pretty sure that you notice when I start singing Om that you say, I had a feeling too that it's about time to finish now. You will see, it's very, well, accurate is not the right, actually in terms of the universe, not using accurate clocks down to the second, actually it's rather accurate. In the same way, you know, I never oversleep. Never. I set an alarm just to be sure. I always turn off the alarm before it can actually wake me up. Because I wake up before the alarm. Always. Of course, if you have a very irregular sleep pattern, one evening you go to sleep 2 o'clock at night, 2 a.m., the other night you go to sleep at 9 p.m., and so forth, every day very different, and every day very different waking up, then of course there is a risk that you do not wake up at the right time. But if you have a regular life, and every day you wake up at 7 o'clock, for example, tomorrow you need to wake up at 4:30, you will wake up at 4:30. Regularity, routine in many people's eyes is very boring, so we try to avoid routine. No, routine is very powerful. It's very powerful to, in light of your yoga practice, which is designed to build more energy, to build greater strength, to build sattva, harmony. Routine is one of your most powerful tools. Yoga is not just asana and meditation on your cushion. Routine is yoga too. So what seems very boring in many people's eyes, for you is a very powerful tool. And that actually brings us to tapas. Everybody knows tapas, of course, from the Spanish restaurant. Ironically, Indian tapas is totally the opposite. I'm just kidding, like with the word nada, which also in Spanish has a meaning. Tapas is the practice of austerity. And it is in fact an extension of contentment. The practice of contentment kind of leads naturally to tapas, or the practice of austerity. Because contentment means not to desire more than you realistically need. Austerity, the practice of austerity starts with that. Practice of austerity is in fact the opposite of luxury. Again, we live in very challenging times because of all the comfort and luxury that is widely available to everybody. Why do we need tapas? Because everything is energy. And our most important asset, the yogi's most valuable asset, is energy. Luxury, comfort, leads to tamas. It destroys your energy. You become dull, physically and mentally. You become dull, lazy, languid. Austerity, fasting. You know fasting? Kumshik, Tanshik? That is a form of austerity. If you've ever tried fasting, which on the surface seems very difficult, not to eat several days, you notice that the first day, not so bad. Second day, you start to become hungry, and that hunger makes you a little bit restless. You have a tendency to go to the fridge and get some food. The third day, you start to become clear in your mind. Then the fourth and the fifth day, when I do fasting, I do it 5 days. Most people stop at 3. But the fourth and the fifth day are the most difficult. That is where you really, you can experience dizziness, you really need, the fourth and the fifth day, you really shouldn't be too busy with work or have any problems to solve or anything that gives you a headache. You really should take it easy the fourth and the fifth day. But apart from the struggle that you have with the hunger and the lack of nutrients, your mind becomes very, very bright and sharp. Thank you. Where were we? When you're fasting, you become very bright, and it's kind of the ultimate kind of form of practice of tapas. Tapas, austerity, in a practical sense, means if you live on the second or the third floor of an apartment, take the stairs when you go up and down instead of the elevator. I live in an apartment complex, and you know, in Korea, when you live in an apartment complex, you have a sticker on your window from the apartment where you live. So you can see where the car is from. Now, my block, my flat, is the first one, Ilton. So I live at the edge of the apartment complex, and the maintenance office is in front of my house. All the engineers are based there, working from there. There is a church next to my house, and there are 2 kindergartens. So many people come to that location by car from the same apartment, and the apartment doesn't stretch more than 700 meters in length. So people maximum living 700 meters away, they drop off their children at the kindergarten by car. You're not surprised? I'm shocked. Not only because, what are you thinking? I have another example. It's totally ridiculous. But before we get there, I'm jumping from one to another. So, first of all, your body needs to move. Energy is your most precious asset, your most valuable asset. By taking the car, denying yourself the opportunity to walk 700 meters, you're destroying your most valuable asset. Not only that, what are you teaching your child that you drop off by car 700 meters from home in the kindergarten? You're teaching your child the same kind. Take a bicycle with your kid or walk hand in hand. But we have no time for that. You know, I had my classes in the gym that was just across my street. That is why I moved to Yoido. Just across the street is this huge gym where I had my classes for 8 years. And behind the gym there is a building, it's called Ricencia. When you drive the Olympic Highway, you see Ricencia next to Trump Tower. Who wants to live in Trump Tower? Ricencia. So from Ricencia to the gym is 300 meters. There are people, I know people, they take the car from Ricencia, drive around 63 building into the parking lot of the gym, then they take the elevator to the 3rd floor, and then they jump on an exercise machine. Instead of walking, which is an exercise, taking the stairs, they take the car. Yeah, you don't believe it, it's true. Most people don't do that, but I know people who do. Another example, also somebody living in Ricencia, has a beautiful dog, goes to the riverside by car. Not only this person needs a walk, the dog needs a walk. You can't make a dog happier with anything else than just a walk, sniffing around every lamppost and tree and bush and what have you. Takes the car to the riverside, walks to the field where the people go with their dogs, then goes back to the parking lot, and then goes drive home again. On his way, you would think that on his way he must go to the supermarket or the bakery shop, or no, just comes from Richensha, goes to the and back. It sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Austerity means you do as much as possible what you can do yourself. Go to the supermarket on foot. If it's too far, unreasonable, take a bicycle. Only if it's far out of the neighborhood, you take a car. This is necessary as a yogi because your development depends on your amount of energy. And energy is not something you can buy. It's something that you generate. And austerity, tapas, is the tool that we use. We start using our body as much as possible. Again, we live in very challenging times. We have cars. We have washing machines, dishwashers, everything. Even a robo chongsoki, a robo vacuum cleaner. You don't even have to do that anymore. You know, if you look at the past, when people didn't have all these luxuries, life was not easy. If you have a family with kids and you have to wash every day by hand, you have to shop, you have no bicycle, no car, and everything has to be carried home. Everything has to be done manually. That was really hard life, but now it's totally the opposite. As modern human beings, we need to find a sensible balance to avoid destroying our health. If not for yoga, then just generally for our health. At the open day, somebody asked, the guy didn't join the course, unfortunately, but the guy asked, well, why do we need to do asana if we can just sit down and meditate? It's a valid question, but the physical body is like a machine. And meditation only goes so far in keeping you healthy. A machine needs maintenance. Filters have to be replaced. Oil now and then has to be replaced with fresh oil. Parts now and then have to be replaced. The engine has to move. A machine, if not used, will slowly but certainly fall apart. Human body is the same. So when you read traditional yoga books, you get an impression that the body is unfortunately something that we have to accept. Because the holy books, I told you this at the open day maybe, and also maybe in lesson 2, the second day, when we talked about or the first class, yin and yang, energy, etc., tamas and rajas. What was I saying?
The man asked a question about why do we need to do the asana.
Yes, thank you. The physical body needs maintenance, the holy books. The holy books go out from the point of view everything is energy, everything is spirit. Spirit has decided to occupy your body temporarily for 60, 70, 80 years. If you don't use that body, the spirit cannot manifest, cannot express itself. That sounds very mysterious. I'm a yoga teacher. I don't teach from reading a text and tell you to memorize it. I teach from my heart. Inspiration, literally, in spiritus. If I don't maintain my body, there is not sufficient energy to be inspired. My lesson will become very boring. So the spirit doesn't manifest, doesn't function if there is not enough energy. If your health is poor. That is why austerity is part of what you need to learn to understand yoga properly. You can see for yourself in times that you are lazy, maybe after you completed your study, graduated, you're exhausted, you want to take a rest. But if you rest for too long, if you're inactive for too long, you also don't feel good anymore. You become grumpy. You feel like being stuck. Something just doesn't feel good anymore. So you start moving again. Now you understand why. Austerity is necessary to generate enough energy. When towards the end of the course, we will study, in the last 8 lessons, we will study a part of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. We will then come back to this in detail because Patanjali addresses the concept. There is austerity. That leads to generation of energy. No, it's better not to go here yet. You need to first learn about Pratyahara also. I will keep it a little bit simpler. Remember from the orientation workshop and lesson 1 and 3 that energy has a natural tendency to condense and condense toward the bottom. If energy is not vitalized, in Korea you have the word ki energy. Chinese you call it qi, from Tai Chi. Qigong. In Sanskrit it's called prana. The prana is energy, but not just energy, it's vital energy. Just energy is not good enough, because just energy always goes to the bottom, finds the bottom, that manifests in your lowest chakras. For spirituality, you need energy in the highest chakras. And that is why you practice austerity. Energy is already there. What you need to do now is vitalize that energy. It is based on vital energy, prana, that your higher chakras open up and spirituality manifests. Now, if you think that is not of any use in your life, spirituality is not a luxury, as I've tried to explain before, because it encompasses intuition, insight, vision, wisdom, but also unconditional love, compassion. These are all qualities or characteristics that are located in the highest chakra, in the crown chakra. The reason why most people that you know do not manifest these kind of qualities is explained here. their energy is gravitating towards the bottom. What they manifest is emotions and desires. A life full of conflict. And you have become part of that, and now you have an opportunity to rise above that. But to do so, we need austerity in our lives. Now it may sound very complicated, but when you do asana, you're actually practicing austerity. Can you see that? I always present it in this way. You subject yourself to discomfort in order to become more comfortable. That sounds like a total paradox. You subject yourself to discomfort. Utita Pasvakonasana. That is a terrible pose. First warrior, second warrior. Oh my God, I hate those poses. But when you understand why you are doing it and the result of what you are doing, you change your mind about how terrible these poses are, because you understand they help you to improve. They help you to become more comfortable. If your body is not healthy, you can relax as much as you want. You will not feel comfortable. If, however, you are very healthy, brimming with energy, you can even be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. Health is everything. Austerity is energy. Energy is strength. Strength is health. It's inherently connected. One is not possible without the other. So if you are very comfortable, living in luxury and comfort, not moving because you don't have to, that on the surface seems to be very attractive, very nice, but it leads to a deterioration of your energy, and with that all your higher functions will diminish, collapse. However, austerity can be pushed too far, and then it becomes violence. You see, the third illustration is an emaciated yogi. I was like that before, and it made me very sick. Since I started practicing yoga, I started seeing everything in life as a challenge, as a training. I became vegetarian. I subjected myself to 2 times a day training, Hapkido, practicing yoga every day, and eating very austere. Very pure food, no meats, no dairy, milk, yogurt, and what have you. Very austere. I was like this. And because you feel mentally very bright, very clear, you don't think that anything is wrong with you until you develop certain symptoms. Because of a lack of nutrition, because of lack of vitamins, proteins. You need a lot of proteins when you are so busy. Last week we talked about vegetarianism, and I suggested that you consider vegetarianism. What I didn't tell, and that's actually not so pure, so I will tell you today, is that I have been a vegetarian for 20 years, got very sick, and then the years following, I've basically been healing myself with nutrition. And to do so, I also allow myself to eat animal products, mainly fish products and chicken, not so much pork or beef. They say there is a hierarchy. Cows, pigs are more sentient, more conscious, more connecting with human beings than a shrimp, for example. The shrimp is much lower on the ladder of evolution. That doesn't justify eating a shrimp, but you know, when you talk about vegetarianism because you don't want animals to suffer, if you push that principle further down the road, plants also suffer when you pull them out of the soil and when you cut them. You don't believe that, but research has been done. You know what happens when you cut an onion, right? You start to cry. That is not a coincidence. There is no coincidence in the universe. You know why you cry? The onion produces the substance that irritates your eyes to protect itself. The onion doesn't want to be cut. No, really. As soon as you start, if you just have an onion, it doesn't irritate your eyes. When you start cutting, it irritates your eyes. Same with carrots. Carrots, they say when you eat carrots, cut them up and put them in the fridge. The longer you put them in the fridge, 2 days, 3 days, the more antioxidants they contain. You know what antioxidants are? That is the carrot's way of protecting itself, protecting its life. So after being cut, you could say the carrot is bleeding. And the more it bleeds, the more powerful the antioxidants. Trees have their way of protecting themselves. Why do you think there is resin coming from a tree? To make glue? No. Resin is a way of the tree to protect itself. When you remove the bark or you cut through the bark, the tree tries to protect itself and save its life by producing resin. Of course, we human beings ignore that, and we put on protective clothes and what have you. Well, that's on a more subtle level, that is what nature is doing. So how far do you go? Everybody should determine that for themselves. What happened with me is that it was in the time that I had my yoga school in Itaewon, so that contributed to me wanting to close the yoga school, the studio. I started having pain, my liver, feeling heart rhythm disturbances, headache, ear infection with black pus coming out of my ear. So I weigh myself and I see that I'm 5 kilos lighter than usual. At that time I was usually around 64 kilos. And I weighed myself and I was 59. So I thought that's impossible. I threw away the scale and I bought a new one, a digital scale. And it was still 59. So then I thought, this is not good. I went to the clinic. I know now a lot more about all this, and it will not happen again in this extreme way. But at that time I was totally ignorant about what I was causing with my extreme practice of austerity. I went to the clinic, I had my blood tested, comprehensive blood test, the international clinic in Itaewon. Everything was wrong. My kidney function, my liver function, the heart needs certain hormones that keep it functioning properly. Everything was lacking. They gave me a pot of vitamin B because they want to make money, but that was not the solution. The solution was I needed to eat more and I needed to eat better. Everything hurt. I was super flexible, but my muscle became very stiff and painful and permanent headache. And so since then I'm more sensible about food. Now, actually, I should have known better, because there is an anecdote from Gautama the Buddha that basically the story goes the same. Gautama the Buddha was a prince. He grew up in luxury, in comfort, in the royal palace. When he was a teenager, he was destined to get married. Arrangement had already been made to get married when he was 16, 17 years old or so. But Gautama the Buddha was born with a natural tendency towards spirituality. Now, I think the fact that you are here, you can count yourself probably among the people that have a natural tendency towards spirituality. That means you're more sensitive than other people. That means you have a tendency to be more introvert as opposed to being extrovert than other people. These are all indications that you have a tendency towards spirituality. Gautama the Buddha had a natural tendency towards spirituality, and he felt that the luxury and the comfort of life as a prince in the royal family, in the royal palace, was stifling, blocking his spiritual development. So when he was engaged to get married, he kind of felt getting trapped, getting stuck even more. So before the wedding took place, he fled through a secret passage under the palace, went outside the royal palace, threw off all his clothes. That is, of course, a symbolical story, but he threw off all his clothes and he joined a sect living deep inside the forest. This sect still exists today. They are called fakirs. Have you ever heard of fakirs? Have you ever seen these pictures of a yogi lying on a bed of nails, walking on glass, or burning coal? They're called fakirs. Fakirs is a sect that dedicates their life to austerity. They only drink water, only eat roots, no luxury, nothing. That's why they demonstrate their austerity by sleeping on a bed of nails. Buddha, feeling that the luxury and comfort was destroying his wish to manifest in a spiritual way, joined the fakirs, expecting austerity, extreme austerity, to help him. And of course, to some extent, it did, as it did with me. After 6 years with the fakirs, he had a feeling that he was going to die. He felt that his organs were starting to fail. And actually that is what I felt with my liver and my heart and pain in the back with the kidneys and so on, permanent headache. Kind of that feeling that everything is going off the rails. So the story goes that then he left the fakirs, he walked out of the woods into a meadow where he found a goat. He milked the goat, drank the milk, and that was his first step towards the path of the middle way. The conclusion of Gautama the Buddha was this: too comfortable, too much luxury is not good. Too much austerity, depriving yourself of nutrients and what have you, is also not the answer. The answer must be somewhere in the middle. Can you see that? That's what I found also. The reason why I was an extremist it's all connected. I was emaciated. My mind felt bright, so I thought it was right. But in the end, I was damaging my body. So the message is extreme austerity is also not good. We need to find a middle way. And you see that with asana. You practice asana, but it doesn't have to be perfect. You do it for 5 seconds right, or 10 seconds right, you practice contentment. Telling yourself that you did a good effort. Instead of expecting yourself to stay. You know, in Korea, Hatha Yoga became very popular because of a famous yogi in Jeju-do. When you go there, your first lesson is to stay 12 minutes in one pose. You recognize that? Yes, everybody knows this. And everybody thinks, wow, this is great. No, it's pure violence. Even an advanced yogi doesn't stay 12 minutes in a pose. It's damaging. It is a total distorted idea of asana and austerity. What you learn here is a very sensible approach. And you are the boss, not me. I'm not saying that, okay, let's all do first warrior and you must stay 5 minutes. And I'm looking at the clock, and if I see you're moving and you want to come out of the pose, I say, no. It's not time yet, you have to stay 5 minutes. That is what many teachers do. That is not yoga. It's also not austerity. You decide how long you stay, but you implement yama and niyama. You can do an asana, like a difficult asana like the first warrior. Let's stick to the first warrior. You can make the pose easier by not doing it correctly. But you learned non-violence, which means you don't overdo it, you don't hurt yourself, you don't exhaust yourself. But then again, you also learned non-lying. If you diminish the pose by reducing its intensity, you're doing nothing else actually than you're cheating yourself. You're not cheating the teacher by not doing the alignment correctly so that you can stay longer according to the clock. You're actually denying yourself opportunity to develop and grow. So you're not only lying, you're also stealing. You're lying because you're not being truthful with yourself about the proper posture, and you're stealing because you're denying yourself the opportunity to grow from what you are doing. So I keep saying, and I did this from the beginning and I will continue to do so, better 5 seconds in the correct alignment than 50 seconds incorrectly. Austerity, but in a sensible way, and not I am the boss, not I decide how long you stay, you decide. I only give some instructions how to do it properly. And that becomes your tool, and you work with those tools, and you determine how to use them. You determine when it is time to let it go, to end the exercise. Austerity is subjecting yourself to discomfort in order to become more comfortable. Don't forget. And it doesn't have to be extreme. There are people who run marathons, 42 kilometers, a full marathon. Most people cannot do that. But with very long, proper preparation, starting with 5 kilometers and then slowly working towards 10 and then slowly working towards half a marathon, maybe in a couple of years you can build up the condition to run a full marathon. There are people who do, what is it called? Ironman? That is not a marathon, it's a triathlon. That is swimming, cycling, and running. I think swimming, running, and cycling. I don't know. You start anyway with swimming and then, but a triathlon is, I don't know exactly the distance. It's it's about 1 hour of swimming, then you have 200 kilometers cycling and 42 kilometers of running. That already is extreme austerity, but Ironman is triple all that. It's like 3 days and nights swimming, cycling, and running with only very short naps in between, like 5 minutes or so. Very short rabbit naps are allowed. You may think that is austerity, but I think it is very damaging. Later on, you start to suffer from either joint problems or organ failure. Extreme athletes often die premature because their heart gives up. Not during exercise, but when they retire from sports. So try with everything. Do not avoid challenges. Triathlon, of course, a marathon, Ironman, these are all challenges, and if you want to do Ironman, if you feel the challenge, do it, but do it in a sensible way. Know that there is an option to give up, that you do not damage yourself by forcing yourself to hang in there. There's something I want to tell you, but it slipped my mind. It will come back. Do you have any questions? Meditation is also a form of austerity. Meditation is a form of austerity in which you reduce your mind activity. You reduce the amount of thoughts that you have, and you notice as a result of that, you reduce the amount of words that you use when you speak. People who meditate generally become relatively quiet people compared to other people. When I sit here, I talk a lot, you know that already. But in my private life, I'm a very quiet person. Unless you talk about yoga. If it's not about something that I really feel connected with, there's actually nothing I have to say. Chit-chat, I'm not capable of chit-chat. The people think I'm antisocial. But talk about something real, something related to real everyday life, and I'm very engaged, very connected. But chit-chat, it's just impossible. And if you're capable of it now, enjoy it while you can, because you also will lose your ability to chit-chat. It may sound like a bad thing, but actually it's a good thing. You will keep a lot of energy to yourself you can use for more constructive issues. Wait, I should highlight. In the second paragraph from the first page, you see that the power of Atman, which is the self or the soul, will manifest itself through you more and more. And it doesn't elaborate in the text. So that causes mystery. Atman is the self with a capital S. You can also call it soul consciousness. It's a more... Now, what is soul consciousness? Soul consciousness, in short, is your true characteristics. If I had not started practicing yoga, my life would have stayed the same as it was when I grew up as a child and a teenager. And I would probably have become... I might have become an accountant, or... because that's what I studied, or a truck driver, because that my father was, and that also seemed quite adventurous to do. But my real self, my Atman, would not have expressed itself. So the phrase that Atman, as a result of practicing austerity, can express itself, can manifest, your soul consciousness can manifest. I've kind of explained already with using other words that as a result of practicing austerity, you have so much energy that energy will find its way up, the Kundalini effect, awakening the characteristics that are located in the higher chakra, in the crown chakra. That is what this means. Your true characteristics, everybody has true characteristics of which we often are not aware because of the way that we have been raised by our parents after birth, teachers, society on a whole, the government, the media, all indoctrinate us in ways that have nothing to do with our true self. And because of that, most people, when they honestly ask themselves the question, who am I really? They cannot answer that question. Atman, manifesting, soul consciousness, manifesting, means, in practical terms, connecting with your true characteristics and then start living little by little accordingly. In practice, that is what I have done since I started practicing yoga. Instead of pursuing a career, I followed my heart, and it brought me to Hapkido, it brought me to come to Korea. It led me to more and more develop as a yoga teacher, because that's where I really feel home. Along the way, I have done many things not in line with my true characteristics. All the jobs that I had and certain relationships that I had, they were all part of the process of getting where you wanted to go. We will talk about Atman also in a later stage. It's also an interesting story of the Buddha related to Atman. Soul consciousness. Your true self with a capital S, your true characteristics. You need this energy that you generate with tapas to allow those characteristics to manifest. Remember that all that you are doing has a reason and a purpose, and it's actually quite amazing where it leads. You don't believe me yet? But next year you will see. Always when I start a course, then 4.5 months later, I see that you have changed. You don't believe it yet. A year later, when you look back, you will realize it. That is what we are talking about here. What has changed? Your consciousness. And part of that change in consciousness is your awareness of your true characteristics. Many of our former students have moved on doing amazing things. Working in Costa Rica with indigenous people, starting a completely natural, organic farm from scratch. A multi-year process in which they start with a piece of land, and years later it has a beautiful cabin, and they're producing all kinds of natural they process the foods, they produce the jams, honey, all kinds of organic stuff. It's just amazing. They would never have gotten to do what they have undertaken without yoga, without the transformation, without following their heart. And you will all, one way or another, become part of that change, that transformation. But it all depends on the energy that you put in. And remember, sometimes you push yourself a bit too far. You only learn from that it is important to find the middle. But not doing anything, not trying anything, doesn't lead to anywhere. Expose yourself. Challenges. People try to avoid challenges in their life, obstacles. Don't. When I see a challenge, an obstacle, I smile. Other people run away in the other direction. Why do I smile when I see a challenge? Because I know that it's there to teach me something. Because I know that this is there to help me to move on to the next level. If you have conflicts, instead of reacting emotionally, try to deal with it in this way, as a practice of austerity. When you have a conflict, see it as a gift from the universe that is giving you, it is an exam in life. It is an exam, a test. If you start seeing it like that, you will be much more creative and constructive in solving the problem. Way beyond just reacting instinctively with more conflict, with more adversity, resistance, aggression. Try to see everything in life from this perspective. Life is full of challenges and obstacles, not to make you miserable, then you are lost. To make you stronger. Facing an obstacle, facing a challenge, is pure practice of austerity. If you face it and if you deal with it actively. And that was the point that I just before forgot. Challenges and obstacles are your teachers. Questions? Long story, huh? I'm full of long stories. My battery can't handle it so long.
I have a silly question.
There are no silly questions. Go ahead.
Wounds. So, Hindu mythology abounds with stories of devas and asuras doing 1,000-year austerity and then getting granted a boon by Brahma. Is that just a metaphor for what you've been describing? Like an allegory for what you've been describing?
Yeah, the old texts are full of such symbolisms.
Right.
That if you compare that to what is realistic in normal day life, you think, oh well, yeah, just a nice story, but it has a meaning. You have to learn to interpret that. by reading between the lines. But basically what you try to do is crawl into the mind of the person that wrote that text 2,000 years ago. Because they functioned in a very different way. A good example of this is the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita on the surface seems like an epic war story, a huge battle. And the battlefield is called Kurukshetra. Then there is the warrior Arjuna, that every time when he is in trouble, ask for advice to Krishna, which is a god. I think they have made a movie about the Bhagavad Gita, and all you see is chariots and people killing each other. That is also what the book is about. But what it's really about is about the battle between the head and the heart in symbolical language. And that becomes clear when you see how Krishna advises Arjuna to deal with the problems, obstacles that he comes across. But on the surface it looks like a battlefield where people kill each other with swords and bow and arrow, and it's all symbolical. And actually very interesting. The battle between the head and the heart, every yoga practitioner will have to deal with. It is especially about the spiritual person. Normal person doesn't have to face the battle between the head and the heart, at least not in such ways as the spiritual person, the yogi, has to deal with it. The battle between the head and the heart is between what you feel like doing, what you wish or dream to be doing, as opposed to what you have been told all your life to be doing. By your parents, by your government, your teachers. And that is a true battle. Very often we feel something and we ask ourselves, how do I know whether this is my head or my heart? And we don't know. Because the dividing line is very thin. What is inside the heart is affected by what is in the head, and the other way around. What is inside the head is affected by what is in the heart. So it is very subtle and it is very complex, and only time can tell. How do you deal with the dilemma between the head and the heart? By experimenting. But experimenting with an open mind. If you feel something and you think it's from the heart, follow up on it. Follow up on it. If you meet a lot of resistance and failure, you know that either it is very polluted by emotions, desires, by the mind, or it was not from the heart at all. If something is truly from the heart, you follow up on it, you notice auspicious signs that you are on the right path. You meet the right people at the right time in the right place. And you think it's a coincidence, but it's not. Things start to go smooth and natural when it's from the heart. And the opposite is also true. Things that are fabricated in the mind cause a lot of friction, a lot of obstacles, a lot of conflict. And if you look at it, that is the life that most of us live. We are in a constant conflict with our parents, with our boss, with our government, with everybody, with our partner, with our children if we have any. Most people's lives are constant conflict. If you are more and more on the path of your heart's content, you will see that conflict diminishes more and more. Things go more and more natural, more and more smooth. But it requires what I told you before, what I explained before. Lots of patience. If you don't know what to do, do nothing. Wait until the right time comes. Not in a passive way. I made that clear too. Keep yourself busy with daily things. Most of all, austerity. Keep yourself healthy. Maintain a good level of energy so that when the day comes that the phone rings, literally or figuratively, that the day when the pieces of the puzzle fall into place and it is time for you to move, come into action, that you are ready, that you have the energy that is there, that you are motivated and inspired. So do not be fatalistic, negative, no matter how miserable you are. Keep doing what you need to do to maintain your level of energy. Exercise, eat healthy food, even when you're miserable. Or maybe especially when you're miserable. So that when it's time, you're ready. And then all you can do is smile. And you will say, wow, wonderful things are happening. And you know that it is no coincidence. You have only yourself and your attitude that you have chosen to thank for that. There's also a story of never giving up. I was about to give up last year, but what I did was, you know, the dog comes into my life, everybody thinks I'm crazy. I see it as an opportunity to practice austerity. I have to wake up every morning, 4:30, 5 o'clock, make a walk. At 10 o'clock we walk again, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon we walk again. It's almost a full-time job, but it keeps me sharp, it keeps me moving, it keeps me practicing austerity. And the dog is helped, and I am helped. That's how it works. But if you can only see things two-dimensionally, then you think, oh, I'm already so miserable. I cannot handle having another dog in my life. Somebody else should take care of that. No, there is an opportunity there. It helps you to stay active. It helps you to stay positive. And you know, it's so grateful and so joyful to have such a creature that was so miserable, had never experienced a loving hand, a loving human being, and see that creature thriving. Pada is still scared of human beings if he doesn't know you. But when you know him, he's like a teddy bear. He's so mellow, so sweet. He looks like a wolf. People are scared when they see him. Either scared or full of admiration. Wow. I've even heard people say, wow, that must be very expensive dog. No, it's free. Nobody wanted to have it. But my days are, I see them thrive, and yeah, it's a full-time job, but I think I have the luxury to put in the time and effort. I kind of see it also as a payback to the universe for all the progress that I have been allowed to make. Kind of a payback to taking these two poor dogs and make them happy and healthy. Life of a yogi is strange, huh? I can't live in another way anymore. Did I answer your question, Thomas? Other questions? Okay, let's have a short break then.